Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 on Beyond Horizons, where I'm very, very excited to have special guest Jax here, which I have been following for years. I'm excited to have her on. And Jax, can you tell us what it is that you actually do?
Oh,
One sentence.
one sentence. I initiate souls into their next phase of evolution.
Powerful. I'm getting goosebumps. That is super powerful. And so I'm
Mm.
really excited today. We talked a little bit about the topic that we'll be delving into how to actually anchor in and embody your purpose and your power in this life, which I'm super excited to get into because I feel like a huge percentage of people miss this, especially in the spiritual world. So I am
Mhm.
excited to delve into that. But first, I would love to ask you, how did you come into your spiritual awakening and what was that like for you and when did it happen?
Oof. So it's quite interesting. Thank you so much for also inviting me on. It's a privilege and an honor for me because likewise, I've been following and frothing you and your message and who you are. And you're just such a bright light in your journey and you're very vulnerable and authentic in your journey. And I really enjoy that about you. So the honor is mine to be here. So thank you so much. And this question is a great one because I feel like there will be a lot of people that can recognize this on their path, and there will be some that recognize it happening right now. And so for me, it was actually in hindsight where I could recognize when I actually had this spiritual awakening. And it definitely wasn't with rainbows. It definitely wasn't sparkles. There was definitely no fireworks. And I was not celebrated at all, one little bit. Who would have thought that your spiritual awakening was perhaps the worst time of your life? And that is my story. And so it was actually when I was around 30 years old, I started to recognize that I was asking questions that I wasn't asking before. So in up until I was 30, I was doing life as I was told that it was meant to be done. By the time you near 30, you have a family, you have children, you get married, you have a house, white picket fence, and all of the things. So I was doing the things and I did it. I had a very adventurous time in my teens and my 20s. I partied my 20s all the way to the moon, and I partied my teens all the way to the moon, and I was nonstop. And it wasn't until I realized I needed more structure because I winged my way through everything. I was one of those always broke but always full of life kind of persons. But behind the scenes, I was always like, what is my purpose? What am I here for? It can't just be to live weekend by weekend and or weekend to weekend, I should say. So it was when I was 30 and I was already married. I had by then one child and I had another one on the way. And I also had a business that my ex-husband and I opened together, it was a restaurant. It was when I started to be exposed to different things. Like, for example, my brother came back from doing a 2 day workshop. It was inner healing or something like that. At the time, no idea what healing meant, no idea about personal development, no idea about spirituality. I've always been connected to spirit intuitively. I've always been connected to Jesus. I was raised a Christian. And so I was in that most of my life. I always have a reverence to God and, creation itself. But in terms of my own spirituality, like I'm just a human being, like I'm just human. And so it was when my brother came home and he shared about his experience, and I noticed that he was feeling different. He looked different. He was saying things different, and our conversation was going a bit deeper. And I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. It's gone from how are the kids? What did you do on the weekend? How was the weather? Yep. And just talking about the everyday stuff to going a little bit deeper. And I was like, this is kind of cool. I really like this. And so that kind of ticked me over into a curiosity about other things in life rather than having the things and doing the things and, playing the roles. I started to ask different questions, more about like, what is meditation? What is that for? Never meditated in my life. Right. And my brother inspired me to do this course that he did. And I was like, cool, I'm going to enroll in that. And I did. That was my first taste of spiritual personal development ever. And he asked me the question, what is your intention? My answer was, what does intention mean? I don't even know what that means. And so that was a picture of like my mindset, like where I was, who I was back then. And the years that followed, it kind of went little by little. And then my whole world fell apart. Everything that I knew and I loved completely fell apart. I lost everything, and I won't go into that story as such, but I can probably say that a lot of people would recognize this in themselves and in their life. Relationships falling apart, your job falling apart. For me at the time, my business fell apart, my marriage fell apart. I lost people in my life. And it was like it just wasn't going to stop. It was this avalanche of things just kept going wrong, kept going wrong, kept going wrong. And to the point where I was with nothing but the clothes on my back and the clothes in garbage bags that I had to put in garbage bags because I couldn't actually afford luggage. So I was carrying things in garbage bags. I was sleeping on people's couches. I had my car repossessed at the time. I didn't have my own home. So I was literally a guest in other people's houses. I had no money coming in. I was earning at one stage $100 a week by making food for a friend. So I was helping them with their meal prepping. That is when it started, because at that stage when I had nothing, I had no other choice but to ask different questions that I'd never asked before, which was, what is my purpose? What am I here for? Am I going to be here forever? How do I get out of this depression? How do I not feel like I am the worst person in the world? And I started Googling that. And it was literally where I was introduced to one of the greatest spiritual mentors of all of time, which is Abraham Hicks. I
Uh-huh.
imagine a lot of people would know Abraham Hicks. And for me, I found Abraham via Google, and it was my lifeline. It was my lifeline. Every time I went through something, I was asking the question and asking Abraham online. That's how Abraham communicated with me.
Mhm.
And then from there, it just started me on a pathway that I had never imagined that I would be on. I was surrendered. I had to surrender. You get to that point where there's so much falling apart and you're holding so much and trying for things to not fall apart. I just put my hands up one day. I went out to the backyard of the house I was staying at, and I looked up to the sky and I said, Jesus, whatever you have planned for me, take me. I'm done. I'm done with trying. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it. Take me. I surrender. Whatever you need of me, I will do. I will do. Just show me.
Amazing.
That's when it really started.
Yeah. And I feel like this is such an important part of people's journeys. Oh, are you there? Oh,
Yep.
might have
Oh,
lost you on the screen. I can edit this. There we go. Yeah, I just feel this is such an important part of the awakening journey is that whole destruction of your world that no longer serves. And it is such an epic experience. But the only way sometimes I feel, and I've had this happen to me as well, the only way that I
can you
really,
hear that?
no,
You can't hear that banging?
no.
Okay, good. Sorry. I was like, my husband.
I was going to do a little wave thing. No, I think Zoom's good like that. It cancels out sound.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll start again.
Sorry.
Okay. Um, so this is exciting. I feel like this is a really important part of the spiritual process, is that part where we lose everything and we come to rock bottom and literally our whole world turns upside down. I've had that happen to me. I've heard it many times as well. And do you feel that it is that important place to put you into a place of surrender and receiving, where before maybe it was just more of a yang energy and a putting out energy the whole time instead of actually sitting back and receiving that higher timeline?
So for me personally, I know everybody's experience like this is going to look different. And for me, I had to see that the path that I was on, that I thought was my path, was not my path. And so it felt like it had to be fully taken away for me to just go to wake up and go, this is not it. You can keep trying and trying, but this is not it. And I believe that the signals on the way there are really important signals that I really want to speak into, is because I ignored the signals. That phrase of like, you're going to be hit with a feather, and then you're going to be hit with a truck, and then a brick wall. Like the universe will keep hitting you. And what it started to look like was me so disconnected from my joy. I've always felt like I was like just trying and struggling, and in that I was in survival so much. I pushed people away. I started to disconnect from friendships. I started to see these little things that were happening. I was never really happy. I was like distracted. I would find distractions. I would find little pockets of pleasure, which were just fake pleasure. Alcohol, drugs, that was a big thing for me to lean on at the time. And it was also the reason why I should have been listening at the same time. And so it had to be ripped away from me to really hear clearly. And when we have a destiny and that awakening that happens, it's an opportunity to hear clearly the guidance and of our soul, of destiny, of God, whatever that is. And so, yeah, I agree. It is that needing to take it away for it to become more clearer.
Mm, that's amazing. I love how you described all of that too. And I feel like, that Matrix movie has so many things that are on point, but I feel like as humanity, we are disconnected, aren't we? And we need to plug back in. It's like we're plugged
Mm-hmm.
to the real existence of what is, and all the old falls away. And then we're hit with the truth, we're hit with God and our
Yep.
purpose. And yeah, it can be a tower moment. And I always refer this as the tarot. I don't know if you've seen the tarot cards, and they have the tower in there. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
destruction that comes through in the cycle of the tarot in our lives and then clears that all away. But it can be very destructive, definitely. But I'd love to ask you, with that, and when you started coming into your realizations and your power, how did you start actually anchoring in what you wanted into this reality?
I love that question because it's one that I definitely can say that I never was gifted the magic wand. I don't know, like the magic wand of awakening, and then everything's just amazing, and I'm still waiting for the magic wand. I feel like I didn't inherit the magic wand. I don't think any of us do, and it is a really gritty process, because it's not just like everything that was taken away physically was a reality that wasn't for me. Yet I had to dig deeper into me to really be clear on my reality what I wanted my reality to be. It wasn't going to be the picket fence. It wasn't going to be the restaurant. It wasn't going to be any of that. So then, therefore, what does that mean? And so, what I really appreciate, and what I can really share on, is that it is a journey of humility. It's the greatest journey of humility, of returning to center, of returning to oneness, of returning to the reality and realization that we're all the same. We all go through the same things. Everybody suffers, and we're all the same. And I feel like that's what it has done for me, is to really ground me back into the tangibility of being a human being, and not a human doing. And that's what I was before. I was a human doing and doing and doing and doing, hiding behind the doing. I was hiding behind the doing. But when the doing is not there and you've got nothing to do and all you have is beingness. And so that was what was like, wow, who am I? And asking that question, who am I? Right. And then from ground, like the next step is what's the next step? What is my next step? Not what is the big leap that I need to make $1 million and have all of these followers and do all of that and da, 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 da. It's what is my next step? And for me at the time, my next step was to see and recognize the gap between me at the time and getting a job. That was my next step. I was in $300,000 of debt. I wasn't going to be like, right, I'm going to manifest $1 million and I'm going to be a millionaire and I'm going to be a world impactor. I didn't even know how to pay my bloody rent. That was my first step. My first step was going, okay, cool. So let's ground in a new reality. And that new reality requires a new version of me to birth. But that new version of me can't be the version I was to get up to now where I am. I have to be someone different. And I had to look at all of the characteristics that was in my way. And they were my own characteristics. I was shaming myself. I was judging myself. I was embarrassed. I walked around embarrassed. I had to remove that by healing that, alchemizing all of that to see the beauty in myself, to see the miracle of who I am, and all of this work was that so I could take a step forward in grounding, getting a job as a version of me who loves myself, who appreciates myself, who sees the bigger picture in life rather than just where I failed. And that next step after that, it was actually shown to me. I just feel like we all miss the point of the treasure of life and the exploration that we're gifted. Take the first step as a new version of you. If you have a new insight, have a new awareness, take action on that new awareness, a new version of yourself. And then you're going to magnetize and attract a whole nother version of reality after you've taken the step. But so many of us are so stuck in this, like, well, I'm learning this or I'm realizing this and understanding the concept of manifestation and universal laws and the chakras and all of that, yet not taking the first step because we have this programming around perfection and wanting to know what happens next, which is exactly the reason why our soul did not come here. Our soul came here to not know. We did not know on purpose. We forgot on purpose so we could discover.
I love
And
that.
that's the path that I've been on since. I've not needed to know. I trust so much the beauty and the treasures of life itself, but you have to take the first step. And for me back then, it was to get a job and get a job with pride and gratitude, not get a job because I felt ashamed and embarrassed.
And these things are so important. I think so many listeners will relate to this, that those are the similar struggles that all of humanity go through, the self-worth, the discrimination of self, and not feeling good enough. These are the human struggle here. And you're also
Mm-hmm.
so right about, point A trying to get to point B and always future looking to this point that we're never probably going to get to, maybe one day, but
Yeah.
we've got to enjoy that journey and that self-discovery along the way. So I love that you've kept it real and I love that you've spoken about that because I really feel most people miss it as well. Is
Yeah.
just enjoying that humanness and why we're here and the everyday discovery of those
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And creation, we came here to create. We can't create up while we're trying to regurgitate, or we can't create while we're trying to produce or manufacture someone else's pathway. We may be exposed, we're all exposed to other pathways and other versions of success, but that's not going to be our success. That's not going to be our pathway. But we have to create it. And once we realize that we can't create it if we're not taking steps, we're only regurgitating someone else's path. That's not our soul destiny.
Oh, right on. And so many people get lost in this too. Who am I? And they don't take the time, which is an important part of the Tao part as well, is you have to have that time to nurture and reflect and go within to find that gold and what that purpose is. Like your
Mm-hmm.
unique creation. That comes
Yep.
from reflection, doesn't it?
Yep.
Instead of trying to be like everyone else. So
Yep.
yeah, that's a huge one. I love that. So another thing I wanted to touch on, which we had a little chat about, was finding that a lot of the spiritual community can be all love and light and getting lost in the ascension process, but not actually acknowledging the shadows and the groundwork of what needs to be done. So have you got any advice on that or anything you want to speak to about that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the I love this so much because I definitely got stuck in that for a long time, especially with, being a facilitator of really potent spiritual like experiences, right? And being stuck in that identity, and me staying in that identity of love and light and needing to be liked by everyone. And that was a prison in itself. That's a prison in itself, because let's be real, we are duality. We are. And every single emotion and every single experience of shadow is such a gritty experience, but you cannot experience light after going through dark. You cannot. You absolutely cannot. It'd be so boring too. And, our soul came here, and this is, I'll give you an analogy, right, or a metaphor. So, if I said to anyone right now that is listening, if I was to give you a plane ticket, I'm going to offer you a plane ticket to a beautiful island in the middle of nowhere, so you could have some time to yourself. There's going to be beautiful fruits. There's going to be like beautiful sunshine, and you're going to have the beaches to yourself. You can bring whoever you want. Everyone would be like, yes, oh my God, that sounds amazing. It feels like such a gift. And then we get given this gift, and you land on the island that you've said yes to, you've asked for, and then the day starts to go on, and then you realize, oh shit, there's mosquitoes here. Oh my God, these mosquitoes. Oh my God, this is horrible. And then you get into the jungle, and you realize that you have to like find the fruit, and you're like, far out, where's all the fruit? I was expecting all this abundance of fruit to arrive on platters. And there's just always this, we get to the island, and we have this expectation of this most perfect like picture. But what we're not realizing is that by looking for the fruit and finding our own fruit, we're actually also discovering that we have this skill that we didn't realize that we had, of climbing a specific tree. It's like, oh my God, I actually climbed this tree really well. Or I actually can create a lasso. And because you have gone there to actually eat the fruit, but yet you have to adopt a skill to eat the fruit. And on the other side of these challenges is actually realizing and discovering a version of yourself that didn't exist.
Yes.
That's the treasure. That's the
Hallelujah.
treasure. You come back from that island, and you're like, yo, I am lit. I learned how to create insect repellent with the mud under this specific tree. And you're discovering these parts of you that cannot be birthed through the mundane and the monotony and the false sense of security and safety. No way. Like, that's all an illusion. It's the fact that these challenges and this experience of shadow, so to speak, is to actually birth versions of you that you didn't know existed. But it's the relationship to the shadow, it's the relationship to pain or fear or sadness that really gets to be looked at. Because I've always, like, I definitely went through massive years of like being afraid of my feelings, of being afraid to cry, of being afraid to feel, because that's what I was raised with. I was raised with a Filipino mother that as soon as I started crying, I'd be whipped. I'd be like, no, don't cry. I wasn't allowed to feel. And so I had to reprogram myself around that as an adult, because I don't want my children to be afraid of feeling like that. It means so much to me, their experience of themselves. And so I had to really reprogram myself and see emotion and experience emotion and shadow in a different light,
Mhm.
right? To create a world that feels lighter.
Mm. Yeah, I feel this is so important for us here, is to be able to experience that shadow, because like you said, we get to experience new versions of ourselves, and we get to experience the capacity of what we can actually do. Like when we're surviving through things and we're coming up with different ways to pivot through situations, and we're becoming adaptable, and we succeed through things. It's the warrior's journey. But that's
Mm-hmm.
what we learn, that we can create anything that we want as well. We're not
Mm-hmm.
creating anything by sitting there meditating in love and light. It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen. Like we might bring it into the ether probably till about here, but we're not actually going to. I think that's part of embodiment as well. We're not actually going to start anchoring and embodying anything if we're bypassing the shadow. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we're here to do, is to experience that, definitely. That's your reality.
Totally. It's like everyone, there's intellect and there's information everywhere. Every single person that is listening right now absolutely knows how to lose weight and get fit.
Hmm.
You eat less, move more. That's just one template. Just like that's just an example. But how many of us are actually doing it? Right? It's this. Everything requires actualization to be manifested into reality, into the tangible world. We have to actualize it. We have to bring it through by taking action, and our action is the portal between heaven and earth.
Yes.
Between heaven and earth, between concept and manifestation, between the dream world and the reality world. Like we are the portal through action.
And I see this a lot with light workers is that there isn't any action because they haven't faced a
Yeah,
shadow.
yeah,
Because they're scared to face that real shadow work and look at the mirror and go within and do the nitty gritty. Because yes, it's hard. Yes, it's rough. Yes, it's confrontational. Yes, it's a stripping away of the soul. But then
mm-hmm.
when you go through that, then you have the ability to be able to take that action. And I love that walking it into reality. Just take that one step.
Yeah,
People are so scared to take that risk and that one step towards their dreams. Like, can you maybe speak on that? Because I feel like that little bridge that you have to sort of take a leap off the cliff. Like if you have a
yeah.
big idea or something like that, and I know that you've brought in a lot of things into this reality that are amazing. Can you give any advice on that?
Yes. We actually spoke about this before, you and I, and we talked about the concept between being a light worker and a light slave. And one thing that I know for sure, because I've done this myself, I recall many, many years when I was introduced to this after my awakening journey, and I started to be exposed to spirituality and teaching and all of that stuff. I was like, wow, I love this. I want to help humanity. That was a big thing for me. You help humanity. But also at the same time, I also made it okay that I was always broke.
Mhm.
I thought, you know what? I don't need money. Like I had my own stories around wealth, and I had my own stories around people who had money. And you don't need money to help others. You don't need money to express and help humanity. Uh, but all I was doing was actually I was captivating an audience at that time, similarly to me, was okay with being a big voiced prisoner, because I was simply a prisoner in my own reality where I made it okay to always be broke, to always be struggling, to always. That is not liberation. That is that is not liberation. That is performance. I was a performer. And it wasn't until I actually realized that, holy, I've separated wealth, I've separated abundance, I've separated that unlimited infinite aspect of reality of the possibilities, and I've separated it from heaven and earth. Right, I've made it up there, I've made it a concept, but I've separated my reality by making it okay to stay enslaved. And the enslavery isn't necessarily the fact that I didn't have a lot of money. The slavery was in fact that I wasn't allowing myself to step into the version of myself that actually embodied a version of me who was open, who was actually taking action in her life, actually speaking her truth, actually doing what she said. So many times that I was just like regurgitating Abraham Hicks stuff, wealth, abundance, blah, 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 blah. And how, like, in behind the scenes, I couldn't even barely pay my rent. That
I,
was performance. All I was doing was regurgitating and performing. And it was me that had to realize that that was not in alignment. There was no congruency. What am I teaching everyone? What am I doing? This is not going to work. That's not who I want to be. And, and so I had to actually, well, firstly, realize that and then own that. Yes, I do actually want to be wildly wealthy. Actually, I do want to have a bank account that keeps flourishing. Of course, I want to be a channel of complete abundance so I can actually help others do it too. I can't help others when I haven't helped myself. We're not helping anyone if we haven't physically helped ourselves. So therefore, I had to go through the shadow. How can I help someone else going through the same shadow, the same challenges, or challenges they go through if I haven't done it myself?
Mhm.
It's like a personal trainer who studied personal training still goes out, drinks on weekends, still parties, and still treats their body like shit, showing and teaching someone else how to get on stage. So when they go through the challenge, they actually don't know how any solutions because they've never done it themselves. I didn't want to be that person, that light worker. And I was like, no, let's go hard, let's go deep, let's take me through every hard channel that I need to go through my own shit to be the person that I say that I am, because therefore then I feel good in myself. I feel integral. Integrity is huge. And that's what, like, as you can feel and hear, I'm very passionate about this, because we can't, like, we cannot, that's a light slave. A light slave is someone who actually is not integral to the point of complete integrity of what they're teaching to what they're actually doing.
And it's the huge thing that I've seen. I love that we're talking about this in the spiritual community, in those spiritual groups. Money, is almost seen as the devil. It's seen as greed. It's seen as a bad thing. And there's so many people bypassing it and are in this broke version of themselves where they're struggling. They're preaching love and light, bless them, but they are in struggle mode and they are
And
not
judging.
judging, and the judging comes out because they're judging themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in harmony
Mm-hmm.
with themselves. They're not embracing the wealthy version of themselves. And
Yeah.
as a light worker and as a person that wants to make change on this earth, we goddamn deserve to be
Yeah.
furiously abundant, like
Yeah.
hugely abundant.
Yeah.
We're the ones that are doing the work. And so this acceptance, I find that there is a lot of work to be done on the sacral chakra and the root chakra here on earth,
Mm-hmm.
light working
Yeah.
community, and to be able to have that self-worth and that, yeah, integrity, like you're saying, integrity with all of your actions and showing up,
Mm-hmm.
taking the action. Like this is all lower chakra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems to be a huge problem. So, I mean, I want to see all light workers embody their purpose and become wealthy. We just,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
it has to be a shift here going on.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, money in the hands of people with good hearts, it perpetuates goodness. It
Mm.
perpetuates goodness, and I see it time and time again. Like, and I for myself as well, like when I have money, I love it. I love it. I love gifting. I love sharing. I love, I'm such a generous soul. Like, I'm so generous with my money, and I'm so generous with my wealth, and it's just exciting for me. Like, I've completely moved through the layers of the need the need layers of I need this for validation. And the thing is that so many of us are afraid to move through those layers. Like, you can't meet versions of you that are without the need unless you go through the need. Right. But there's so many of us that are like, oh, I are in need of money, which is okay, because you've got to trust yourself. You got to trust your evolution. You got to trust that on the other side of that, that's actually moving through the layers of shadow that has you feeling lighter, feeling more in the space of not need, and actually just being aligned with desire itself.
So can I ask a question? How would you shift from being in need to being in desire? What's that little bridge there?
So, firstly, I feel like the bridge is actually to take the action you're not taking. Take the action you're not taking. Be okay to need money. That's a lot of the light workers are afraid to say that they're not doing well. They're afraid to say that I actually have my money. I really need help with money. There's so much in the performance of the manifestation and doing this, like, and also owning the fact that where they're at is actually okay. I am actually doing this because this is me taking action on, like, what I'm sharing with you guys. Like, let me show you so we can do it together. So many people are afraid to be humbled and be truthful about where they're at. Start with where you're at and be okay with where you're at, because if you're not okay with where you're at, you'll never be okay with where you're going. Therefore, then that's where people get stuck. They put this image out there that I'm doing really well and this is great. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I've got a lot of things happening in the background that aren't in alignment. Clean that shit up. That's the first thing. Turn around and clean all of the contracts up. Clean up every agreement. Clean up everything. That feels good. Then take the step from where you're at, because it keeps opening other doorways and gateways. But so many of us are like stuck I'll get there, I'll get there, I'll get there, I'll get there, I'll get there. You're not getting anywhere because you haven't actually forgiven yourself, or given yourself grace for where you're at, and be like, yo, let's do it together. So there's a lot of light workers that are in this scarcity and afraid to actually go, hey, I'm where I'm at, but I know where we're going.
I love that. Yeah. So it's like this shame of the journey still, isn't it? Not the acceptance of the journey.
Yes.
Mm,
It's
mm.
like comparison. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good at that's what's like rife in the
That's
industry.
black.
Yeah. It's so rife. It's like, actually, I'm freaking amazing and I'm starting where I'm at and I am gifted and I love sharing this and I'm going to keep sharing this. But I'm also going to let you know that I am starting my journey from where I'm at.
Yeah, that's being raw and authentic with yourself, isn't it? Accepting
Yeah.
all the sides to yourself and accepting the state that you're in right now. That's
Yep.
empowerment.
Yes.
That's
That
being
is
real.
empowerment.
Yes. And I love that sort of clean up all the energy because it's like if you have a messy room and you've got your clothes everywhere and your house is messy, your mind is messy, isn't it? And it just
Yep.
affects the whole energy. And so same if you're cleaning up your contracts and you're cleaning up your energy and you're being integral with yourself, then
Mm.
you're like a clean vessel to go forwards.
Yeah, and relationships. Someone, for anyone that says that they're a light worker, they're here for humanity, and they talk shit about their parents, or they talk shit about their sister, or they talk shit about someone they went to school with, that is not light worker. Like, that is not okay. And there is a big emphasis on this. There's a lot of like hidden stuff, but you can't hide from that. Like, we think we can, but the reason we hit ceilings is because that exists. What do we stand for if we're not actually healing all of that? If we're not healing the relationship with our parents, and the relationship with our mother, and relationship with the friend that stole your boyfriend 15 years ago, even just healing that in yourself, like, that is really, really important, because isn't that what we're here to perpetuate? Like, isn't that the wealth is the byproduct of all of the stuff, the gritty stuff? I think that's what you're saying. The shadow, the gritty, is actually facing that part of our energy, that energy lines, is just cleaning it all up. That equates to a clean energy line, right? So whatever is over here is going to happen over here. You can't deny that. That's just the universal laws. So cleaning it up actually cleans out the slate for receiving.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you're saying you get to a ceiling because if your energy is going out in a negative way, you've got those cords going to those people. It's going to keep you
Yes,
stuck.
just keeps you dragging it down.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got to be able to heal that. And even if you can't have a face-to-face healing, it's healing that belief within yourself about that
Yes,
relationship and letting it go.
yes,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
huge. Coming
100%.
surrender and acceptance. They're huge bloody
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
things.
yeah, big.
Yeah. And so that goes a lot. Okay, there's another thing that I've noticed a lot in the spiritual world, and I love that because I love calling shit out, I have to say. I do love it.
Let's do it.
It's, yeah, spiritual ego. So I see a lot of this spiritual ego, mass amounts of it, especially on the East Coast. Um, where does that come from, do you believe? And how can people get past that?
I feel like there's a few things that create the formula of the spiritual ego. And it's definitely a lot of avoidance of own stuff. It's, again, we've just, because we're exposed to so much online, there's this sense of like needing validation online. There's this like unaddressed need for validation. It's unaddressed, it's avoided, right? And it's kind of it's really unconscious. But the spiritual ego and our world now, there is such a disconnect for the purpose of why the online space exists. It's some have created this like, oh wow, it's a soapbox. I get to stand here and share the message and be perfect and be loved and be liked and be followed, right? And then, I mean, and you can also feel when someone is doing that. I feel like you can kind of go, whoa, okay, they've got some trauma that they're not looking at. Yeah. And I guess it just aligns with the message that we're saying is like, it's that it's the avoidance and that need for perfection and that need for validation and that need to never look wrong
Mm.
or never to have our shadow be seen. And that is like the core of this ego that continues to, again, no one can escape their ceilings. And it's quite interesting to think that people think, or there's some people that think that you can actually like avoid that. It's unavoidable, right? So I feel like that is it's just this chase for something to fill the void that we're not willing to know to actually acknowledge that it is empty and that we can't fill it ourselves.
And I love that when you're finally willing to share the shadow and share the truth and share both sides of yourself, it's so liberating. It literally sets you
Yeah.
free.
If you set yourself free.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
haven't I done this 10 years earlier? Just
Yeah.
it's so liberating. We don't have to be
Yeah.
perfect, and people won't actually um they won't feel the affinity with you if you're trying to be too perfect. You won't hit home
Yeah.
to them, you won't hit the heart space. People want
Yeah.
to relate and go through what, if you're a leader or you're a light worker or you're wanting to spread some sort of message, they want to hear the truth.
Yeah. And you know what's quite interesting, babe? I feel like we're entering a timeline where a lot of it is being revealed. Big one. And that's what we're going to continue to find with the online space. It's interesting because a lot of people are leveraging the online space, not a bad thing at all, but actually using it as a tool to hide their traumas, like to perform. But we are entering a time where it's actually getting to a point where people are getting called out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like these I'm hearing it time and time again of these people getting called out of the stuff that they're saying is not congruent with what's actually happening behind the scenes. So essentially we are entering a time where it's actually pointless to avoid our shadow. It's actually going to be a standard, and that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm sure you're hoping for as well, which is a standard that is set for all of the light workers to actually go through their own obstacle course of cleaning up their shit, because it's going to be called out. And I really am like, I hope so, because I really fear what would happen. There's a lot of people that I've seen being called out, then they take themselves offline completely
Wow, okay. But that's
because
essential.
they've
That's ascension. The light's being shone, and so the shadow's going to come up with the light. That's ascension. And if we want proper leaders here, and we actually want to flip this matrix and this system, which is the false light, the
Mhm.
spell that's been put on people, it has to be the truth. The
Yeah,
leaders have to be standing in their truth. We don't have to be perfect. We can
yeah,
stand there in our shadow and like, oh, I fucked up. I made a mistake. I'm in a journey. We're always in a journey.
totally.
It's
Yeah,
evolving. It's never going to come and be sparkly 1,000% there with source. I mean, sometimes, but we're not going to be a perfect presentation as a leader.
yeah,
We're always a work in progress. And so to
yeah,
stand in truth, I love that, we're talking about this, standing that truth there. That's true leadership.
yeah. Truth and truthfulness are two different things. And if we could, it really, for anyone that's listening, it's like asking yourself a different question is, rather than what is my truth, what is truthful to me?
Mhm.
Not what is my truth. Like, what is truthful? What is truthful to in me and who I am? Not this thing that we're putting up on a pedestal saying, this is my truth, this is what I believe in the world. It's actually what is truthful. And what happens is we soften into more authentic expression, which is what is truthful to me, is that I am afraid of, or I feel vulnerable when, or I really love. It's like that childlike truthfulness is what I feel like is going to set us all free. There's no separation from of being a light worker than being a very honest human being, very
Mm.
honest with some really cool wisdom.
That's beautiful. That's really coming back to the now moment too, isn't it? checking in with self with the truthfulness. I love that. That's really, really
Mm-hmm.
good advice for everybody. I feel like a lot of people will listen in on this that are coaches and healers and are some sort of thought leaders in some way. I have a lot of followers that are like that, so do you. So I feel like, you're quite the inspiration to be bringing in your dreams and your abundance. I think you're a great example to look up to and that you're authentic as well. That's what we need more of is authenticity. So, yeah, we go back to that subject of a light slave versus a light worker.
Mm-hmm.
What we said it was?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How can we become that light worker, that embodied light worker? What are the main things you
Mm-hmm.
said? Action,
Yep.
integrity, what else?
It's an understanding and a wisdom in really not separating anything. It's not separating wealth. It's not separating wealth with the stories that we've been raised with. It's actually a light worker understands the purpose of money, the purpose of wealth that is in alignment with their purpose, right? And is actually it has there's a safety with it. There's a collaboration, a co-creation with wealth itself. There is also a collaboration and a co-creation with actually manifesting your desires, bringing it in, like creating it in your life, and and really making peace and harmony with luxury that's important to you. And really understanding that it's actually that's why we came here to create more and enjoy more and create more ease and more flow and creating a life that actually allows us the time, space, abundance, and reflects to us this beautiful abundance within us. And this is that a light worker understands the purpose of it, doesn't have a resistance to receiving, understands that receiving is a birthright, understands that it all flows, understands that giving is receiving. All of these beautiful lessons that we learn in our journey is like the light worker embodies it all without separation. The shadow is the light because it equates to the light on a timeline. Like there's just all of this beautiful synchronicities and alchemy and a full peace and acceptance that wow, like there is no limit to the beauty that I can experience in this one life. And
Mm,
then continues to teach that, continues to remind each other of that, not teach concepts, but actually through the embodiment of how we live our life is to continue to remind others of their possibility, of their capability, of their capacity, of their journey, their wisdom by embodying and demonstrating that in our own life. And I know, like, even years ago, similar people with similar messages, which is beautiful. I'm all about it. Like there's so much to go around for everyone. They're still in the same living circumstances, which is all still struggling. Like, I mean, 4 years ago, and still in the same living circumstance, still struggling, still making money wrong, but
mhm.
they're still struggling. Like, who are you going to listen to? Someone who's walked their message, created and demonstrated what we're actually sharing about, the infinite blessings that we all have access to, our ability to continue to grow, learn, mindset, heart set, soul set, all of the things. Someone who's actually walked a path and you can see the transformation. And you're like, wow, you started here. Now this happened. And now oh my God, you've magnetized love and wow, you've done this and you've done that, and who's demonstrating a world of possibility? Or are you going to listen to someone that's literally saying the same thing over and over again and not changing anything? They're still struggling, still driving the same beat up car, or, whatever that is. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be that same in the same circumstance of when you're struggling, but yet so rock solid in spirit and God and all of these polarities and all of the kundalini, and yet you're still struggling in life? Like, you're gonna become what are those cassette tapes that keep repeating over and over again. And that's who you're going to keep attracting, the people who are like on that same wavelength. Who wants to stay in that same wavelength? Who doesn't want to grow and expand? And also the community, I've noticed that as I've continued to evolve and I continue to expand my life and all the things, I'm also accessing levels of consciousness from people that are at levels that I've never been to yet, like multimillionaires, and I'm in on sitting at their tables and listening and hearing how they see the world and how they operate in the world and how their relationship to wealth and money. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is another next level. How exciting. I'm like, that's when you get to these levels, that's what you're accessing. It never ends. Do you think Tony Robbins or Joe Dispenza have just gone, no, I'm good now, I've stopped learning, I don't need to learn anymore? No, they're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And that's the beauty of this journey, is like, while we can be really stuck in our ego, while we can be really stuck in like making money wrong, and like you can go ahead and do that because that shit's boring. It's fucking boring. Like, that's not the life I came here for. It's definitely not the life I want to demonstrate. But for those of you that are like, you know what, I want to be sitting at tables that are speaking and actually doing things, not just by themselves and talking on their soapbox, but actually creating communities and actually making, impact and creating movements and inspiring people. Like, I want to sit at their tables. I want to learn how they've done it. I want to be in amongst those conversations, Now that is beautiful. Like, that is available for anyone and everyone. You've just got to get off your soapbox and walk towards the tables where people are actually doing that.
Love it. I love it. And I love that you call it a soapbox too, the little drama box there. Yeah. Um, well, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up because the battery is going. My goodness. So where can people find you? This has been an incredible chat. And one more thing I did want to add was, how are we supposed to break free of the slave system if we don't embody this whole money mindset thing, this whole money paradigm, and actually embrace it? And that's our job as a light worker too.
Yes. 100%. If you're not doing, like, it's like, if you're not doing, what are you doing? Like, you're just reading text.
Yeah, we've got to break the system, break the slave system by embodying
Yes.
wealth and abundance. It's our
Yes.
birthright, like you said. I love that. So thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate your time so
You.
much. Amazing things that you've shared, and I think will really enlighten people. And yes, time to get abundant, everybody, and break free of those patterns and accept self and love self. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you and connect?
Oh, very easy. You can just go on my Instagram, Jax_legacy era, or find me on Facebook under Jax Faulkner. I'm pretty simple like that. And I fully trust and believe that for anyone that is, feeling magnetized or attracted, just head on over, hit follow or send a message. Yeah, I'm open, and my inbox is always open for questions and really epic conversations.
Love it. Love you. Love your energy. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
And thank you for listening, everybody. Namaste. I'm going to end.